What in the hell was going on between you that these two young men show up here today in this shape? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? Because either you lying or you confused.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
You have no idea how disconnected and enraged Caleb is. These two young men weren't raised. You chasing fame and you chasing ass.
I don't see a lot of difference between the way you grieved for Traci and Gabe. It looked the same to me. There was a little more heat behind Traci, of course, because it's your sister, but it didn't, to me, and I had nothing to measure it against when Gabe died, so I didn't know anything, but I knew I didn't like it. Because to me, the grief seemed too strong for someone you'd had all those problems with.
So many things are not going well for Trina Braxton because it looks like her toxic relationship with her ex-husband Gabe Solis was much worse than anything we saw on TV. And now she's fighting with her current husband Vaughn because of it, and people are saying that she could be leaving this marriage pretty soon if she doesn't get things under control. And this whole thing started after Trina's husband Vaughn revealed that he's been pretty angry about how Trina mourned Gabe when she learned of his passing. He saw that there was no difference between how Trina mourned for her late sister Traci and how she was after she heard the news that Gabe was no longer with us. And he's been feeling some kind of way ever since. Now, Vaughn is tripping if he's been out here policing how his wife is grieving her ex-husband rather than supporting her. I mean, these men will leave you in the desert with no water and ask you, are you thirsty? Ciao. And then when Vaughn said this, Trina came online and basically broke down and explained why Gabe's passing affected her the way that it did.
Why?
And, Vaughn has 3 children from his ex-wife. Now, if God forbid anything happened to her, I don't believe him to be stoic. I think he would have some feeling towards it, even though he's no longer in love with her. He would be, in grief for his children. He'd be in grief for even himself, like even from remembering those days. Not because it's out of a passionate love, but because of a past love.
Those two spent close to 20 years together and raised kids together. And Trina's sons are not biologically Gabe's, so he didn't have to step up. I mean, the drama between the two of them alone was an ongoing storyline in the Braxton family's reality show, and it even continued after the two of them got divorced. Things were so bad between them that to this day, Trina's sons still don't want children because of how Gabe and Trina's mess affected them as kids.
There's definitely an impact today from how he was to her back then. Like, her self-esteem is terrible because of what happened with him.
You think so?
I know so.
Now, the Braxton sisters have an affinity for toxic relationships and trifling men of all races and creeds, and Trina didn't really have much hope of being any different. But people around her did try to warn her that Gabe and her together just wasn't it. But of course, she didn't listen. Before they got married, Trina was the more financially stable one, and she was helping him get through school and supported him while he got himself set up. So by the time they got married, he was the one with more money. Gabe did support Trina with everything she was doing, and when she wanted to sing, he was there. Even when she started her restaurant Bar Chicks, he was still the one bringing in the money to get it up and running. Trina has also always acknowledged how much of a provider Gabe was, even though Caleb and Eric, Trina's sons, were not biologically Gabe's. He still stepped up and tried to do the right thing by them as the only father figure they had ever known and respected. But when Trina started getting more comfortable and relying on him financially, Gabe started to think that he had earned the right to misbehave. And baby, did he misbehave. Every time he went out, Trina would get paranoid. And at first, Gabe would try to dismiss it and tell her it was all in her head and he wasn't out here doing anything. But Atlanta isn't so big that you could be running around like that without anyone hearing about it, especially when you are in a public eye. And when she started hearing from the streets that Gabe was really out there messing around, Trina was seeing red.
I caught Gabe red-handedly acting inappropriately on a social network site with a female that he knew. There is no way in God's heaven he can deny it.
Due to that, I feel like we went back a good 25 steps. That is why you're not wearing my ring.
You know, I was going to point that out.
And you ask me, why aren't you wearing your ring? Take it, pawn it. I don't want it.
No.
The symbolism is gone. When that ring was put on my finger, what it symbolized no longer applies. So I don't want it.
Trina would go in on him about Gabe's behavior, and even her son Caleb talked about how nothing his mom did was ever good enough for Gabe, and they were always yelling at each other and fighting. But what really took things over the edge was when Trina found out that Gabe was allegedly texting her 16-year-old niece, Ashley Braxton. Trina went through his phone and found out that he had been texting multiple women at once too. And Ashley even recently sort of confirmed it by herself that Gabe had sent her an inappropriate message, and that was one of the reasons why she hadn't rocked with her family like that anymore. Trina forgave him for all that went on and even went to therapy with him too, hoping that this would finally put a stop to everything that he had going on since he had been caught with his hands in the cookie jar. But child, once you show a man that you will stick with him through anything, that's when he will take you through everything. Gabe kept on cheating, and since he knew that Trina was well aware of what he had going on, Gabe started getting paranoid. He even went as far as installing a GPS tracker in her phone because he was certain that she was out there cheating on him as well.
Women are emotional creatures, and guess what? The way you treat me is like you're my dad, and I'm sorry, I don't screw my father.
Trina eventually got some sense and filed for divorce from Gabe, but refused to go through with the divorce. And he said that there was still a lot of love between the two of them, and he wasn't going to give up on the marriage without a fight. He was putting in the work to go to all those therapy sessions and constantly apologizing to her. And Trina also wanted to work on their relationship and agreed to stick through it a second time.
Woo! Trina and Gabe was like herpes simplex 1. It never goes away. You know, it just pops up and it goes away, and it pops up and it goes away, but it's always in your bloodstream.
Now at that time, Gabe was doing everything right. He was on his best behavior in an effort to keep their relationship going. But that marriage had broken into tiny pieces a long time ago, and there wasn't anything capable of putting it back together. When Gabe started stepping out again, Trina admitted that she had done a little stepping out of her own and had participated in some oral transactions with random men as well. Trina made it very clear that she had checked out of the marriage and there was nothing anyone could do to get them to stay together longer. When Trina filed for divorce again, Gabe wasn't having it. He started putting a lot of distance between himself, Trina, and their sons. And he said he wasn't going to settle until he got half of everything that they owned. I mean, the divorce process was messy, y'all. And honestly, Trina didn't even have it like that. Or maybe she was making a lot of money that we just didn't know about because Trina was cheap. I mean, frugal. His claim was that she used and dumped him, and he was basically going to get back every dime that he had invested in their relationship. Gabe was adamant that her agreeing to get back with him a second time was just because she wanted to have a storyline on the show, and it had nothing to do with her loving or caring about him. So he was determined to get back everything she owed him. By the time everything was said and done, Trina was so traumatized by the experience that she didn't even realize how much anger and hurt she still had within her until she heard that Gabe was gone for good. And this was something that Vaughn is refusing to see. And now Trina is finding herself right back in the same situation that she was in with Gabe. Child, the Braxtons sure know how to choose their men, and baby, the people have some things to say about it too. Trina had me crying. It's never easy to leave someone you love and plan to spend the rest of your life with, but she deserves better. They had such a toxic relationship. OMG. The Braxton women can't choose a good man for anything. Dang. But what I really want to know is what y'all think about this whole Trina situation. Do you think Gabe was as bad as Trina was making him out to be, or were they just bad for each other? Sound off in the comments. Make sure you like and subscribe because there's a whole lot more coming. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye, baddies.